afternoon, children. Welcome to online class session 33. Previous session we discussed about MNC of India and its growth, reason for the growth, advantages and disadvantages of MNC. Today we are going to learn about fair trade practices and World Trade Organization, impact and challenges of globalization. First we discuss about fair trade practices. Fair trade is a way of doing business that ultimately aims to keep small farmers an active part of the world marketplace. It aims to empower consumers to make purchases that support their values. Fair trade is a set of business practices voluntarily adopted by the producer and buyers of agricultural commodities and handmade crafts. They are designed to advance many economic, social and environmental goals. The major goals are: raising and stabilizing the income of small-scale farmers, farm workers and artisans. More equitably distributing the economic gains, opportunities and risk associated with the production and sale of these goods. Increasing the organizational and commercial capacities of producer groups. Promoting labor rights and the right workers to organize. Promoting safe and sustainable farming methods and working conditions. These are the major goals. Fair trade is about better prices, decent working conditions, and fair terms of trade for farmers and workers. It's about supporting the development of thriving farming and worker communities that have more control over their futures and protecting the environment in which they live and work. The major beneficiaries of fair trade practices: consumer, trader, producer. First, consumer. Consumer support enables fair trade organization to be advocates and comparing for wider reform of international trading rules. They can choose from an even growing range of great products. By buying fair trade labeled product, consumers support producers who are struggling to improve their lives. Second beneficiary, traders and companies. Since it launched in 2002, the fair trade mark has become the most widely recognized social and development label in the world. Fair trade offers companies a credible way to ensure that their trade has a positive impact. The third beneficiary is to producers. Stable prices that cover the cost of sustainable production, market access that enable buyers to trade with producers who would otherwise be excluded from market. Partnership. Producers are involved in decision their future. The empowerment of farmers and workers. So these are the major beneficiaries of fair trade practices: consumer, traders and producers. Next, the principle of fair trade organization. The first principle is opportunity for disadvantaged producers. Second one, transparency and accountability. Third one, fair trade practices. Fourth one, fair payment. Fifth one, no child labor, no forced labor. Sixth one, no discrimination, gender equity, freedom of association. Seventh one, good working condition. Eighth one, capacity building. Ninth one, promote fair trade. 10th one, respect for the environment. These are the major principles of fair trade organization. Next, the one is General Agreement of Trade and Tariff. G for general, A for agreement, T for tariff, and T for trade. GATT was signed by 23 countries in 1947. India was one of the founder members of General Agreement on Tariff and Trade. In the 7th round, 99 countries participated. In the 8th round of 1986, that is Uruguay round, 117 countries participated. The Director General of GATT, Arthur Dunkel, came up with a draft final act known as Dunk Draft. On April 15, 1994, the final act was ultimately approved and signed. GATT's primary purpose was to increase international trade by reducing various tariffs, quotas, and subsidies while maintaining a meaningful regulations. The first GATT is held in Geneva. Second one is in France in 1949. Third one is in United Kingdom. Fourth, fifth, and sixth round is in Geneva in Switzerland. The seventh round held in Tokyo in Japan. Eighth and final round is Punta del Este, that is Uruguay. So it is called as Uruguay round. The next one is the World Trade Organization, WTO. The signing of final act of Uruguay round by the member nation of GATT in April 1994 paved the way for setting up of WTO, that is World Trade Organization. An agreement to this effect was signed by 104 members. The WTO agreement came into force from January 1st, 1995. At present, there are 164 member countries in WTO. Its headquarters is located in Geneva in Switzerland. So what purpose it was established? To regulation of trade, development of international trade. The member countries of WTO are Director General, 4 Deputy Director General, and other 600 official staff from around 80 member countries. The WTO mentioned 5 types of subsidies: cash subsidies, tax concession, assumption of risk, government procurement policies, stock purchases. So these all considered subsidies because they reduce the cost of doing business. Next, the objectives of WTO: to set and enforce rules for international trade, to provide a forum for negotiating and monitoring further trade liberalization, to resolve trade disputes, introduction the sustainable development and environment can go together, to ensure that developing countries secure a better share of growth in world trade, to resolve trade disputes, to increase the transparency of decision-making processes, introduction of sustainable development. The development and environment can go together, to ensure full employment and broad increase in effective demand. So these are the major objectives of World Trade Organization. Trade related aspects of intellectual property rights. Intellectual property right may be defined as information with a commercial value. Under TRIPS, shall be available for any invention, whether product or process, in all fields of industrial technologies. TRIPS agreement covers 7 areas of intellectual property right, that is copyright, trade market, trade secret, industrial design, geographical appellations, integrated circuits, and patents. So these are the major areas covered by property rights. Next, trade related investment measures. The Uruguay Round Agreement on TRIPS refers to certain condition or restriction imposed by the government. It restricts foreign investment to give adequate provisions for the home industries to develop. Next, the impact and challenges of globalization. First one, the positive effect of globalization. A better economy introduces rapid development of the capital market. Standard of living has increased. Globalization rapidly increased better trade so that more people are employed. Introduce new technologies and new scientific research patterns. Globalization increased the GDP of the country. It helps to increase in free flow of goods and also to increase foreign direct investment. So these are the major positive impact of globalization. Next, the negative impact. Too much flow of capital amongst the countries introduce unfair and immoral distributors of income. Another fear is losing national integrity. Because of too much exchange of trade, independent domestic policies are lost. Rapid growth of economy has required a major infrastructure and resource extraction. This increase negative ecological and social cost. Rapid increases in exploitation of natural resources to earn foreign exchange. Environmental standard and regulation have been relaxed. These are the major negative impacts of globalization. Next, what are the challenges facing the globalization? First one, the benefit of globalization extend to all the countries that will not happen automatically. The fear that globalization leads to instability in the developing world. The industrial world that increased global competition will lead in race to the bottom in wages, labor rights, and employment practice. It leads to global imbalance. Globalization has resulted with the embarrassment. Globalization has led to an increase in activities such as child labor and slavery. People started consuming more junk food. This caused the degradation of health and spread of diseases. Globalization has led to environmental degradation. So these are the major challenges of globalization. So fair trade practices in the world developed in India. It is benefited by consumer, trader and producers. And the major trade organizations are World Trade Organization, which was helping to improve the trade. That's all for today's class. Thank you, children.